Welcome back to A Better Choice Homestead. My name is Kelly, and on my channel I focus on food. This is an edition of Tasty Tuesday, and tonight I am going to be making a local classic. It's Chicken Riggies, kind of like a chicken and vodka sauce, but with a kick, because you know I like things spicy. We're going to be using a whole bunch of fresh ingredients from the garden, and let's get cooking. I'll have this recipe in the description for the video. I've got some water heating up in a pot over here to cook the rigatoni pasta in, and I've got a large cast iron skillet here because that's my preference to cook the chicken in to start. And I'm just going to add about a tablespoon of oil here. I eyeball that. I've got my heat set on a medium high, and I'm just making sure that the pan is coated. I have 1.5 pounds of the chicken thighs, and I am going to use all of them in this pan. I'm going to season them with a little bit of pepper. This is to your preference. If you like pepper, use a lot. If you don't, use a little or leave it out. And a little bit of salt. And these are going to cook about 5 minutes per side to 165 degrees internal temperature. In this dish with the chicken, we are loading up on our protein. We're also getting some selenium, some zinc, some B12, and some iron. And we're also getting the tryptophan, which raises the level of serotonin in your brain, making us feel better. So this is definitely a comfort food meal. But we're using ingredients that also carry a lot of antioxidants, like the tomatoes and the olive oil, the chili peppers and the bell peppers. And antioxidants are what help fight free radicals in our body and help reduce our risk of developing cancers and other chronic diseases. The peppers also bring in lutein for our eye health, and the olive oil and the garlic are very anti-inflammatory. So this is a very healthy meal, even though we're pairing it with pasta. This recipe originated in Utica, New York, and all across central New York. You can find this at most Italian restaurants. It is an absolute local favorite. It is incredibly delicious. After 5 minutes, we can go ahead and flip the chicken. Got some beautiful color on it. You can use white meat for this. I like dark meat because it holds better moisture and I think has better flavor, although it does have a higher fat content than white meat. All right, we're gonna let that go for 5 or 6 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and give these one more flip because they're still a little bit pink on the inside. So a couple more minutes and they will be ready to come out. And we're gonna just plate them up and then tense them until they're ready to go into the dish. We're good. The chicken is done. I've washed my tongs and I am just gonna take the chicken out. That looks so good and crispy. Let it rest a bit. With our chicken resting, I'm going to add 1 cup of chopped peppers. I'm using a mix of orange and yellow. You can use red, you can use green, you can use whatever you have or like. And I'm gonna get those stirred around and just cook them for a minute or two. This pan is pretty hot. It's on a medium-high heat. So we don't want the peppers to burn, so I'm just gonna stir them constantly. We just want to get them softened up. I've cut the peppers into, well, they were the mini bells because I still have a lot of those left to use up. So I cut them in half and then I quartered them down. And if they were a little bit longer, I cut them into thirds. You don't want them, well, you could dice them up, but in the traditional recipe, they're a little bit larger. All right, next I have 2 tablespoons of garlic minced. I'm gonna pour that to the pan and just get that in there and cooking a little bit to get it fragrant. And next, I'm going to add these little red hot cherry peppers. I have quartered down 3 of those, and I've mostly taken out the seeds and the ribs, but I have left a little in. That's just going to add to the heat profile, which I like. Going to get that cooked down. I'm scraping up the bottom, make sure that that garlic isn't burning on the bottom. This is going to be so delicious. All right, now I have 1 cup of a dry red wine. I'm using Cabernet. If you don't want to put alcohol in your dish, you can sub this out for some chicken broth. And while that's bubbly and hot, I'm going to deglaze that bottom, but just by scraping up the bits. I'm going to let this cook just for a minute or 2 to reduce the liquid and cook off the alcohol. And from what I understand, this is the base of the absolute original Utica's Chicken Riggies recipe, but I do like it with cream, so we are going to be adding some cream. Smelling really good. All right, now that most of that wine has reduced down, we probably reduced it by at least a half at this point, I'm going to go ahead and add my tomatoes. This recipe calls for a 28-ounce can of Roma tomatoes, but since I have so many tomatoes in my garden, I went ahead and picked some today after I cored and scored them. I put them in boiling water for about 30 seconds to get them peeled, and then I chopped them down into quarters, added them to a stock pot, and just kind of medium simmered them for a total of about an hour to get them reduced. And then I ran them through my Vitamix to pulverize the seeds. You can feel free to use a can of the tomatoes, but if you have them fresh, feel free to use those too. I ended up with 3 cups of sauce, which would be the equivalent of a 28-ounce can of tomatoes. So I'm going to go ahead and add that sauce in. Get that well blended. Now that everything is well combined, I'm going to reduce this to simmer. And we're going to let this go for 5 minutes. And our pasta water is just about coming up to a boil, so we'll be adding in the pasta in just a minute. I'm also going to add just a pinch of red pepper flake, probably the equivalent of half a teaspoon. That's totally optional, depending on if you like heat. I'm going to go ahead and drop in the pasta now. I'm using rigatoni. That's where this dish gets its name, Chicken Riggies. And we're going to cook this al dente, which is 11 minutes. Before I pour that in, though, I am going to salt this water very liberally to add some extra flavor to the pasta. And I'm going to start an 11-minute timer. We're on the 5-minute mark on the sauce, and I'm going to go ahead and add in 1 cup of heavy whipping cream. And to be honest, this is whipping cream that was in my freezer because I don't usually go through all of it when I buy a container. And we're going to get that mixed well into the sauce. This defrosted beautifully. It's going to be lovely in here. This is going to lighten up the sauce. It's going to make it nice and creamy. That red wine really added a deep, rich color. The sauce originally was a little bit on the lighter side because of the tomatoes that I had used, but it tasted fantastic. I did add some basil and I did add a tiny bit of sugar as I was reducing the tomato sauce. I have those notes in the description. All right, and then to this, I'm going to add some freshly picked Italian parsley, probably about a tablespoon, and I'm just going to tear that up and add that in. And now we're just going to let this simmer for another couple minutes while we chop up the chicken. Set these aside, and the chicken we're just going to do bite size, whatever size you would like on your fork for this dish. Keeping in mind it's going to be served with some rigatoni, which is a medium-sized pasta. This chicken smells fantastic. It's got beautiful color on it. It still is juicy. All right, chicken's ready to go in. Give this another stir. I'm going to stir up that pasta. Our pasta is done al dente style. And as you can see, I am just pulling the rigatoni right out of the cooking pot and putting it right into the saucepan. Honestly, the recipe says to reserve a cup of water to mix in anyway if needed to thin down the sauce a little bit. I think it'll be fine if a little bit of the cooking water gets in there. And it's less for me to wash. Next, we're going to add in our chicken. We are going to stir well to combine. We want that sauce mixed over all of the chicken, all of the pasta. This smells incredible. This was a request by my son. And he is going to be so happy to dig into this. All right, we look well combined there. Next, I'm going to add in 1 cup of pecorino romano and get that stirred in. I wish you could smell this. It smells amazing. All right, last, I've got some fresh basil from the garden, and I'm just going to tear that in. I'm going to turn the heat off. Get that, oh, that basil smells incredible. So fragrant. Let's get that mixed in a little bit. And voila, dinner is served. Let's get this plated up. I have not made this in a really long time. For most of the last year, we've been doing keto for somebody in the house. So pasta is just relatively new back on my menu. And chicken riggies are absolutely incredible if you like heat. If you don't like heat, make this anyway. Just leave out the hot peppers. It is truly phenomenal. All right, let's give this a taste. I got a nice healthy bowl here. I'm gonna go for the vegetable first, as always. This is one of the sweet peppers. Oh my gosh. That sauce is incredible. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna go for one of the hot peppers. Not very hot. Not very hot at all. Still absolutely delicious. I'm glad I added that pinch of red pepper in here. All right, let's try the chicken and the pasta. Here's my pasta. This sauce is incredible. I don't even know what else to say. Let's try the chicken. Mm. Oh my God, that is so flavorful. Feel free to add a little sprinkle of that cheese on top as well. I think it's perfect just like this. Get some basil. That is outstanding. And this is a local original recipe. It's phenomenal. I hope you give this recipe a try. Thank you so much for joining me again in my kitchen for another edition of Tasty Tuesday, Utica Chicken Riggy episode. My name is Kelly. You're at A Better Choice Homestead, and I do hope you come back and visit again soon.